Cutting these slots is quite a lot of work, but well worth it. I labelled this hole as spring. A spring also needs to go there, but it really needs to fit a ball bearing. This cutout is for the semi-auto sear to engage the selector switch. I'm using the length of wood at the top as a guide. These grooves are also optional. A6 is screwed into place to make it easier to align A5. I found it easiest to clamp the plane and run A14 over it. Notice that the cutout lines up with the dotted line, but is on the other side. You're probably better off making this rotor out of ABS or HDPE, but this is for the folks that keep saying they can't find plastic. F3 is clearly still too tight. C5 glues to the bottom of G1 and the opposite side to the countersink. I'll need to shave some wood off the bottom right corner of the sear. I'm only going to glue E6 when the trigger group works properly. The trigger bar should pull forward on the semi-auto sear, disengaging it. This should allow E3 to slip past the semi-auto sear. Note that this taper starts just inside the rear edge of the pump handle. I'm removing the paper spacer and moving the pump so it doesn't get stuck. The nail head should protrude just above the surface. The exact width of the J parts depends on the width of the receiver. In my case, the receiver is 31.5mm wide, so the J parts are 0.5mm wider. You will need to glue a small block of wood near the back of the ejection port. This block should be held with double-sided tape so it can be removed and shaped until the system works properly. Start with the semi-auto sear. It is screwed in place along with a small light spring. Next comes the charging handle. This uses a longer, wider, but still fairly light spring. The trigger needs quite a stiff spring so that it can overcome the sear spring. Note how these two parts interact. Also note the small washer and nail added to the hammer. The hammer spring runs over these three washers. You will need to figure out where to anchor the hammer spring by trial and error. The launcher trigger and sear also need spacers and a light spring. Install the follower and ejector. and the rotor. Slide the pump on, and pin and screw the end cap in place. You can see the magnet just behind the screw. This engages with another magnet in the pump. The side plate can now be screwed down. Drop the ball bearing on top of a small, stiff spring. The selector switch needs to be made of the hardest wood that you have. It has 2 indents in the underside to engage with the ball bearing. The upper shell catch is held in place with the block, which is then locked by a long screw. The upper shell is hinged with any sort of bolt. Make the shells from light wood or aluminium. Brass is too heavy to function properly. Lastly, the stock is fitted with a bolt and thumb screw.